Yes, hello. Now I can see we are started. So, a very warm welcome from Hamburg, Germany, to all participants of this webinar on global practices on prison education. My name is Lisa Krolak, and I am the Chief Librarian at the UNESCO Institute for Lifelong Learning in Hamburg, Germany. Let me start by saying that today we have French and Spanish translation. If you want to switch now to the translation, please choose the channel for simultaneous translation by clicking at the bottom of your screen. There is a little globe called interpretation. We will also record this webinar in case you want to listen to it at a later stage again, or if you want to share it later, which we would of course appreciate. I am joined today by my colleague and co-moderator Katie Jones, who will introduce herself shortly. Together, we will guide you through today's session, featuring two case studies who will share valuable insights into their practices. This webinar is part of UIL's global webinar series, Unlocking the Power of Lifelong Learning, which brings together stakeholders from across the globe on the first and third Wednesday of every month. This one is for this year, the fourth webinar on education in prison, where we highlight how education within prison and jail settings can serve as a catalyst for personal growth, improved well-being, successful rehabilitation, and equip individuals with the tools they need to resettle once they are after release. At UIL, we firmly advocate for education as a fundamental human right, one that must be upheld for all, including those who are incarcerated. At this webinar, we will again have a closer look at cases that are part of our collection of case studies on education in prison, which was launched during the Montreal International Conference on Prison Education about a year ago in October 2024. It currently features 18 case studies, showcasing successful initiatives and practical examples. Currently, these 8 case studies span countries from Argentina to Thailand. They are from all continents, and they cover themes such as literacy, digital skills, other forms of non-formal education, but also vocational training and entrepreneurial tools. To give you a first good overview, let us now show you a short video demonstrating our collection of case studies.
Today, over 11 million people are incarcerated worldwide. For many, the right to education is denied, limiting their chances of a better future. But change is possible. Around the globe, prisons are embracing education as a path to rehabilitation and renewal. They show how lifelong learning benefits not only those incarcerated, but society and renewal. They show how lifelong learning benefits not only those incarcerated, but society as a whole. Prison education can empower individuals by equipping them with the tools to create new lives and livelihoods for themselves after release. Through fostering personal growth and economic and social reintegration, prison education can result in lower rates of recidivism and promote more cohesive societies. Prison education can also lower violence in correctional facilities. Across continents and contexts, prison education takes many forms, each shaped by unique challenges and local needs. The UNESCO Institute for Lifelong Learning, UIL, is committed to advancing inclusive, effective prison education programs. Through its online collection of global case studies, UIL documents and shares innovative practices that inspire action and transformation worldwide. Here's a snapshot of prison education initiatives from around the world.
Remission for Reading, Brazil. In 2012, Brazil's Ministry of Justice introduced a law allowing prisoners to reduce their sentences by reading books and writing reviews. Change Hub Innovation Center, Kenya. The Change Hub Innovation Center offered a rehabilitation program that equipped female prisoners with digital skills, including coding, web design, and computer repair. Founded in 2016, the program has empowered women to enter a technology-driven job market after release. Sustainable batik production for female prisoners, Indonesia. Female inmates are trained in the traditional art of batik fabric dyeing, equipping them with sustainable skills for life after prison. They participate in a 3-month vocational training program with opportunities to earn income from their handcrafted fabrics. Storybook Dads, UK. The charity Storybook Dads in the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland enables prisoners to record themselves reading books for their children to listen to or watch at home. Also, it provides workshops where prisoners can create personal gifts for their children, fostering self-esteem and family connections.
Through its ongoing initiative, the UNESCO Institute for Lifelong Learning brings global attention to the transformative impact of prison education.
Yes, at URL we remain committed to documenting and sharing best practices on education in prison to foster visibility, raise awareness, and create opportunities for collaboration as we do today. These efforts aim to support the development of more humane and effective prison environments. As this is a living condition, we will continue to expand it. Later this year, we will add 10 additional case studies focusing on innovative practices from prisons located in cities that are part of the UNESCO Global Network of Learning Cities. And in the future, more case studies will follow. Therefore, if you are aware of a relevant initiative that could be included in the online collection, please feel free to contact us at URL. Today's webinar is about 1 hour. You can write your comments and questions into the Q&A box, and we will do our best to answer as many as possible during this session or maybe in writing afterwards. Now I'm very happy to hand over to my colleague Katie to introduce herself.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lisa. And thank you to everybody for joining us today. My name is Katie Jones, and I have been working with the UNESCO Institute for Lifelong Learning on several topics over the last 3 years, including prison education. As Lisa mentioned, we're delighted to host a growing online collection of effective practices in prison education across the globe, developed together with our former colleague Marie Macaulay and a number of implementing partners around the world. Based on their contributions to the collection, today we will learn more about 2 pertinent cases which illustrate what lifelong learning in penitentiary context can look like. One is from the United States of America, and the other is from the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Our first speakers today will be Danny Headland and Jaron Cook from the Frames Prison Programme of the Brink Literacy Project. For nearly a decade, the Frames Prison Programme has empowered incarcerated individuals across the USA to transform their lives through education, self-expression, and mental health support by creating and publishing their own graphic memoirs in a literary magazine. Danny Headland founded the Brink Literacy Project at 19 to help those living on the brink transform their lives through storytelling. As CEO, she guides the organization's vision, fundraising, and advocacy, and serves as editor-in-chief of Friction, one of the world's fastest-growing literary magazines and the heart of Brink's educational programs. A passionate international speaker, Danny champions literacy, education, and prison reform, and the power of narrative to ignite cultural and political change. Jaron J. Cook is the partnership coordinator and an instructor at Brink Literacy Project, as well as a justice-impacted community leader, published author, and proud single father. After navigating the justice system from the age of 13 and facing more than 8 felony convictions, he transformed his experiences into a platform for change, impacting thousands through his story of resilience and growth. A former student of Brink's Frames comics program, Jaron now teaches and builds partnerships that bring storytelling into prisons, classrooms, and communities, showing what's possible when resilience meets opportunity. Danny and Jaron, you have 15 minutes. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having us. It's such an extraordinary honor to be included in this case study And Lisa and Katie, thank you so much for your care and attention in having us here. I'm going to run us through a little bit of how Frames works. I have, of course, a nerdy little PowerPoint, and there's a wee video in there. And then I also thought it would be a great opportunity not just to share the outline, but to hear directly from a student who's gone through the program and had his life transformed. So first step is whether or not in this early morning phase, I am capable of conjuring a PowerPoint presentation. So please bear with me because I apparently decided the appropriate thing to do this morning was to open several of them at the same time. Okay, here we go. Right, so the program that we have that is featured here in the case study is our Frames comic program. And that is a program, like Katie said, that we've been running for nearly a decade. And before we kind of break into the logistics of it, I would love for you to hear just kind of directly for our students. So we have an incredibly short, wee little video of this. But before we go into it, the framing on this is, what is Frames? And for us, at its core, Frames is a 10-week program that helps students discover their passion, purpose, and power through the art of creating graphic memoirs. For us, passion, purpose, and power are kind of the core elements that anyone needs to succeed, whether or not you're just as impacted or not. And so what we use is a pretty unique kind of odd form of getting there. There's a lot of sneaky therapy, there's a lot of sneaky relevant education, but let's break directly into hearing from our students.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today.
Brink's Frames program is an 8-week course designed to encourage introspection and deepen students' connection to themselves and their peers. We read comics as a fun and accessible way to explore life's turning points and how they change us from the inside out. Through shared vulnerability, students become sources of encouragement and support for one another as they reflect on their strengths and resilience and identify the value in telling their story for themselves and others. This course gives students the space and tools to increase self-awareness, practice positive self-care, and become both author and active protagonist of their own stories. Meet Jay, a Brink graduate.
Coming from the background that I come from, you don't trust nobody. You come in with a barrier up. I just watched everyone's barrier start to drop. To be able to step back and look in on my life as a story, it gave me confirmation that this isn't a down point, this is a turning point.
After the course, Jay transformed his life into a short graphic memoir and learned to see himself as the hero of his narrative instead of the villain. Jay has now become a Brink instructor. Discover the power in telling your story. Be an advocate for yourself and others. Ignite change. Join the Frames comic course today.
Great, so that gave you a little bit kind of an overview. Also, if you can't tell, we're big comic and art nerds, and we will never pass a opportunity just to show pretty art off. And who doesn't love seeing Jay as an animated character? He looks fabulous. So to kind of give you an overview, I now realize that video was made over the summer before we increased our curriculum length to 10 weeks, so it is 10 weeks now. But there's a couple key elements in that. First is how we target our audience. We work throughout the entire school to prison pipeline. For us, obviously, incarceration is a community and generational issue, and we want to make sure we're tackling it at every level. So that means that we work in preventative youth spaces, we work directly with the DOC and facility, and then we work through reentry. And we're trying to make sure that we're going to create as much of a safety net in those key gap areas as we can. The second part is our structure. Although comics are our primary teaching tool, the heart of the program is helping our students hone in on a turning point in their lives. And that's a moment where they made one decision, and if they chose differently, their lives would be radically altered. That creates some really amazing things we'll kind of dig into on the data side. And then, of course, it's an educational approach. We're a literacy organization, so we want to make sure we're gaining those really valuable literacy, communication, and critical thinking skills. But we also know those aren't the only skills we need to survive. So we have a good focus on behavioral mental health, knocking down the personal and exterior barriers. But also there's a really big focus on pathway creation, which are what are your goals? How are we going to get there? And that strengthens the entire model. And then there's also a really good kind of objective and outcome element where we're fostering narrative therapy, because that's what we're doing. We're writing great stories about our lives, self-advocacy, and really building strong community ties. So when we I want to break down two of the weirdest things we do, because there's certainly prison reading programs, prison education programs, but there's kind of two elements that always have a warden raise an eyebrow at me, but they're actually really core to how our programming works. So the first bit is that we are incredibly obsessed with comics. There are so many incredibly amazing things that does for us in the classroom. But first, one of the biggest angles is how it helps us tackle low literacy and reluctant readers. This is something that's very personal to me because I had undiagnosed dyslexia growing up. So I was the one kid in my small town in special ed, and comics were the breakthrough for me through education. So one of the really great things that comics allows us to do is engagement and motivation. It's colorful, it's dynamic. So if you're looking for reluctant readers or anyone who's struggling, comics are going to be an extraordinary force for your educational experience. It's also really increases comprehension. The interplay between the images and the ideas really makes those complex ideas easier to grasp. That's not only for anyone who might be dealing with a learning disability or an education barrier, but particularly when you end up in these spaces, you have a lot of other things going on, and it's very kind of difficult and distracting to hone in on a typical education course. So this allows us a lot more engagement with our students. Visual literacy is incredibly important to our world these days, as my cantankerous phone tells me. So this really helps us kind of understand those key skills to interpret visual information. And last bit, again, kind of what I talked about with dyslexia, it's an incredible support for diverse learners. That's everything from people on the autism spectrum to be able to understand the emotions within the physical way that people's faces are drawn, to dyslexia and neurodivergence. So it's an incredible tool in all of those ways. One thing that's not mentioned here, because we do a lot of behavioral health work, it's also an extraordinary narrative therapy to be able to think back on more of the visuals, to have a more tactile experience with going back in time and really reliving those moments creates a really incredible therapeutic tool. The other thing that's really weird is we're writing about our lives. We're writing about memoirs. And this not only makes it a really interesting course to recruit teachers for, because you then are not only a literacy teacher, but you are also kind of a caseworker and a therapist and a like live comedian in order to make these classes really work. So we're doing a lot of deep dives into oftentimes some of the biggest traumas in our life, and that has to be handled incredibly delicately. But there are some extraordinary education outcomes that we get from writing about memoirs. And one of the key elements is memoirs are about us, which means it is relevant to us. So instead of throwing down Dickens or even this like love of my life Batman, that can be really irrelevant to students. How does this apply to my life? But when you're writing about your life, that is simply something you cannot say. So when you have much more relevant curriculum, studies show you have radical increases in the efficacy of education programs. So it's everything from improved academic performance to higher engagement, better comprehension and retention, really does a great job of supporting equity and inclusion, because of course you're centering those voices, because in our classrooms, as I'm sure in many of yours, incredibly diverse group of students. And it also encourages critical thinking and real world application, because it's literally about your real world. The other great thing about it is it really allows that kind of sneaky therapy element, which I'm sure Jay will talk to because he really enjoys that. But when we're writing about our lives in this safe space, it helps us do kind of the deep dive of therapy with a non-clinical lens, because a lot of the students that we work with, and certainly my community was that as well, is incredibly reticent to share. It's this idea that, hey, what happens in the household is never spoken of again. So this is a very safe way for us to get past that stigma, to talk about stories, not in these are the bad things I did, but why did the main character make these choices? What were their motivation? And that creates a really amazing behavioral health space. So the big kind of elements we get there are emotional processing, self-awareness, stress relief, validation and connection, and it really builds resiliency. And another kind of cool element, because we do pathway work, so we look backwards at a turning point, and then we spend some time looking forward, like what's the turning point in the next 5 years that's going to trip us up? Solidifying that kind of North Star narrative really builds resilience as well. So they're all kind of tied together in that gooey space. But again, you've heard enough of my voice, so I would love, Jay, if you would tell us a little bit about what it was like to be a student and why it really worked for you.
Yeah, of course. Well, good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending where you're at. Again, Jerron J. Cook here, and I'm a instructor and now partnership coordinator. And the experience with Brink and the Frames program for me was, in the simplest way, life-changing. As Danny mentioned, it was some really good sneaky therapy, if you will. When I started the class, I wasn't really sure what to expect or why I was taking the class, especially coming from the background that I had come from. Just a little bit more context. I'm justice impacting myself. I started really early in the justice system. Around 13 years old is when I caught my first actual charge with the justice system. So for a long time, I um, I thought that was kind of my destiny, or my 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 story, if you will. So once I got into the Frames program, the way that we kind of storyboarded our lives allowed me to step back and look at my life through a different lens, not on the lens that has been conditioned for me as I grew up, but more of a author of my own story. I got to identify things and how they made me feel, and how I was feeling afterwards, and some of the decisions I made, I had never got that opportunity to really sit back and reflect rather than just hear what I did wrong, why I was wrong, and all the wrongdoings that I would continue doing. So once I got the opportunity to be in a safe or a brave space, if you will, to share my story, share some of my resiliency after making it through certain things, and then also being able to hear my peers share their story, it was priceless. Some of the guys, some of the peers that I had in my cohort, I had known for years. I had been incarcerated with, but once we got into the classroom and started to explain and tell our stories, I had learned so much about them that I had never knew before. So I knew it wasn't just working for me, but it was working for everyone. And I think after about the fourth class, I had told Danny and our program manager that this was like sneaky therapy. Every time I would come into class, like we're reading comics and we're storytelling and we're doing different breathing techniques and body scans. And after we would go home, I just felt different. I felt like I had went through some sort of therapy and or meditation or something. So that's when I said, this feels like sneaky therapy. You guys have us coming in and we're reading and we're learning about each other and we're just doing a lot of self work, and it doesn't come off that way. So I fell in love with the thought of just being immersed in this space with community members like myself, and I got the opportunity to become a student advisor, and from that it has just snowballed into what now is a career for me, going to do things that I love and connect with the community that I come from. So it's been a really special journey, and it- thank you guys for learning more about our work, because it is really impactful and it changes lives. It truly does. I know we have a limited time, so Danny, I'll allow you to keep pushing,
Yeah,
or
that's
I'll tell
perfect.
you guys my entire life story.
Well, we'll kind of plow through the remaining ones because obviously there's room for data, which is exciting. But one thing that Jay brought up that I think is important when he was a student advisor and now an instructor is that we do a lot of deep trust in the room, which means that we need to be co-created and co-facilitated. So we always have, if we're in a justice space, a justice impacted person is one of the teachers, and it really creates a great trust system. And I can't tell you how amazing Jay is in the classroom. He is phenomenal. Okay, right. So in our last couple minutes, our model is not just having incredible transformation for the storyteller, though that is the core of what happens in the classroom. Stories have a dual power. They have the ability to change the people who experience and engage with them. So a part of our model is extremely weird, which is we take incredible stories from the classroom and then we elevate them into incredible professional comics. Jay, I'm going to just plow through these real fast and then I'll jump back over to you. But essentially, what we do is we elevate these student stories. And these first two pieces of artwork are actually from Jay's comic, which is phenomenal. It's this cool, like Greek god lens to him growing up. I love it. But we take these stories and they're distributed around the globe, and that helps us really move the needle. They're carried in Barnes Noble and local booksellers, and something we're really excited about, more than 1,100 prisons and jails. And why this is kind of core to our model is we know that if we're having big transformation in the classroom, but we're not radiating it out, we feel like we're doing our student a disservice. It doesn't matter if we spark incredible change in one of our students in the DOC, if when they get out, the world still thinks that they don't deserve second chances or that they're just evil or wrong. So we want to radiate that out. So we do our big transformation in the classroom, which is frames. We do cool community engagement, which Jay will go through quickly because it was his idea and it's lovely. We engage with kind of our local change makers. A weird part of that model is we bring in incredible celebrity authors. So it's Margaret Atwood, Roxane Gay, Celeste Ning, all these incredible voices come in and elevate the things that we put out. And that allows more eyes on our vital student experiences, which is a part of how we do big national campaigns. So Friction's distributed all the way around the world. We're so excited about it. And then we also bring in legislators and decision makers to engage with these stories so we can move the policy angle. So again, I'm going to plow a little bit faster. Jay, do you want to walk us through what the impact of the comics is? Because Jay is one of our published authors.
Yeah, 100%. The impacts of the comics have just been overwhelming, if you will. The opportunities as far as, public speaking engagements, the connection and the nexus that it has built between myself and my communities. My peers are now asking me, hey man, I saw you published a book. How do I do that? Or what was that process like? So it has now allowed me to elevate my advocacy from just being in the community talking about the work and the change that I've done to now taking that more of on an international scale, being in the prisons, being in Barnes and Noble, not only really encouraged me, but also encouraged my community to see the scale of advocacy that someone from our community could be put on. So, really just empowering and then reassuring that these stories do matter. And then to take it even a little bit further, I had this great idea to tell Danny, and I don't know if I'm skipping up too fast, Danny. Why don't we make this more immersive? Because reading the story is one thing, and feeling this story is another thing. So we went as far as when we released my graphic memoir, we did a live storytelling event to add in different things as far as live music, lighting, the visual of the graphic memoir to really, really allow the audience to feel and understand the story. And in that audience, we had people like the mayor, elected officials, educational school superintendents. So these individuals that may not come from this background are able to kind of take a trip into some of these students' lives that they may have a miscrewed stigma about. So really connecting the dots, bringing from the grassroots up to the top of the grass, really to help our understanding of our students and why the stories that they're telling is really important. It was a great turnout, and now we have decided to make this a series so we can elevate more of our stories. And
Jay
also,
just wants to make more people cry. He's so good at that.
yeah, there was a lot of tears, but there was also a lot of change made. We do surveys on this, and the response that we got on the event is just amazing. I think over like 80, no, numbers are going backwards here. 98% of the individuals that showed up asked for more of these events like this. So it really connected well with the community, and then being able to go out there and share my story was just so empowering and kind of lifted a weight off my shoulders. So I'm not walking around with this fog or barrier. I feel confident in telling my story and where I've come from and where I am now. So really,
That's
really
great.
special experience.
So since I'm over time, I'm just going to run through these things very, very quickly. We're obsessed with data. So here's kind of some key markers, and feel free to kind of review them or ask questions about them. But we do a big behavioral health marker, a really big education marker, and a pathway one. We have infinite data. So if you have any questions about it, please come to us because we love it. Here's kind of the big ones, which is that we have over a 95% engagement recommendation rate. So important because if they don't like it, It's not going to grow. We do something very cool with the Stand Together Foundation where we do a general transformation score. So 91% of the people that complete the program feel that it has transformed their lives for the better. And our recidivism rate is under 2%. Here's some just like the stories go to many, many people. And we're actually moving the needle on how they feel about justice impacted populations and building that empathy. So if you want more information or you just want to hear Jay and I banter with each other, which seems to be the core of the company these days, here's a QR code for you to learn more about Brink. And there's also Stand Together made a really incredible kind of like origin story video about Frames and Jay and his comic. And it's amazing. If you wanted to watch it, it's there. And his beautiful little girl is in it. It just breaks my heart. She's so cute. Anyway, that is our entire presentation. Thank you for listening to us ramble.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much indeed to you, Danny and Jay, for that truly inspiring intervention. You highlighted several really key points, I think, that have come up at different moments within this series. For example, making sure that learning offers are very relevant, really resonating with the needs of the people engaging within them. From diverse backgrounds, but also the power of comics and this notion of sneaky therapy as well that you brought in. I think that's fascinating. So thank you very much for sharing that with us. It's very clear that the work that you're doing is fantastic and having so many wide-ranging benefits. Thank you, Jay, also for sharing your personal story, which is truly, truly inspirational. It was also great to see some of your work there. And wonderful to hear about how you're disseminating this work through different mediums. I think this live storytelling event that you mentioned sounds fantastic. And we will be very, very eager to see what might be the next steps for that and to hear more and more about your work also as it progresses. So thank you very, very much once again to both of you. I did notice that there was a question in the chat from Tera Garcia, who mentioned that their team working in correctional education at Austin Community College in Texas would love to chat with you all at the Brink program. And Tera asked if contact information would be shared. Just to say, I do believe in the chat, the contact information of Danny and Jay has been shared there. So just to point that out. So thank you very much also for raising that in the Q&A box. Just in the interest of time then, let us now move to our next intervention of the day. We will now hear from Sharon Berry, founder of the British NGO Storybook Dads, and Kizzy Rove, who is the Deputy CEO of Storybook Dads. Sharon Berry's introduction to prison life came about in 2001 when she was a volunteer helping the writer-in-residence run a prison radio station, which included letting prisoners record stories. From there, she went on to do a PGCE in adult education and began teaching literacy in prison. She set up the Storybook Dads charity in 2003 and gave up teaching to focus on developing Storybook Dads. 22 years later, Storybook Dads operates in 103 prisons in the UK, including women's prisons, and in relation to Storybook Mums. So several other countries have copied this model, as have the armed forces. Kizzy Rove studied fine art practices, focusing on film and media, before training to teach art in post-compulsory education. She first encountered prison life and the work of Storybook Dads during a visit to observe education in prison. That experience really stuck with her, and in 2009, she started volunteering with Storybook Dads alongside teaching film and media at Plymouth College of Art. In 2012, Kizzy decided to leave teaching behind to join Storybook Dads as a permanent member of staff. So Sharon and Kizzy, we very much look forward to hearing about your experiences today. You have 15 minutes in total. I do believe there will also be a video shared very shortly. So the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thanks for inviting us here today. And thank you to Lisa and Katie for facilitating everything. So being as we work with audio and video, that's what we do. That's what it's about with the prisons we work with. Instead of doing a regular presentation, we thought we'd make a film. So that's what our presentation will be. It will be about a 15-minute film. So I hope you enjoy hearing about her work. I just want to say, when I started the charity back in 2003 from an empty prison cell, I had no idea that it was going to spread the way it did to practically every prison in the UK and lots of prisons abroad. But I think it has, because it's just a really simple, effective and profound idea that just brings so much joy to prisoners and their children, and it benefits everybody in so many ways. So we're going to play the film. I hope you like it. This is what we do.
I'd like to tell you about Finley. He is 7 years old. One day, there's a bang at the door. His mum is crying. Policemen are taking his dad away. Finley is afraid and starts crying too. Weeks pass. Finley doesn't understand where his dad has gone, and every day he rushes home from school in case he has come back. Children at school start to say things. Someone's mum heard that Finley's dad is in a place for bad people. Finley pretends to be ill so he doesn't have to go to school. He falls behind with his schoolwork. Finley wants to go and see his dad, but Mum says he's too far away. Here is a short film from a child's perspective.
Some children don't have the chance for their mum or dad to read them a bedtime story. Some children wake up one day to find their dad suddenly gone away. And some children can't visit their mum because she's in a place too far away. Some children feel lonely and confused because they don't understand why their parents have left them. And some children will feel better because they receive a precious story CD or DVD that they can play whenever they're feeling sad.
It is estimated that every year in the UK, over 300,000 children like Finley experience the loss and isolation of having a parent in prison. These children may suffer feelings of isolation and abandonment and are 3 times more likely to have mental health issues than their peers. But maintaining family contact from prison can be hard. Phone calls are expensive and visits can be difficult, especially if the prisoner is imprisoned a long way from home. If a child does come to visit, they may be upset, tired, and anxious. Prison can have a dehumanizing effect. Men in particular have to be tough and not show weakness. The loss of personal agency and reduced family contact can result in emotional withdrawal, making it hard for families to maintain close, supportive relationships. Research shows that prisoners who do maintain contact with their families are up to 6 times less likely to reoffend. And that's where we come in. Storybook Dads is a national charity that helps imprisoned parents to maintain meaningful contact with their kids, whilst also helping to improve literacy skills for the child and sometimes for their parent too. Prisoners are recorded reading a bedtime story for their child, which brings comfort to the children and reminds them that they're loved and missed. It also gives the imprisoned parents the chance to participate in their children's lives and helps them to feel valued as a mum or dad. When a prisoner first comes to record a story, the process of picking, reading, and recording can be emotional, uncomfortable, and sometimes overwhelming. Sometimes they break down and cry because they're missing their children so much. They feel shame that they have let their families down, and sometimes embarrassed, and they have no idea how to go about reading to their child. Many prisoners were never read to when they were young, and have never read to their own children. The average literacy age of prisoners is that of an 11-year-old, and many associate education with failure and humiliation. Once we've recorded mum or dad reading a story, we take up mistakes and background noises. We add music and sound effects for audio stories and pictures from the book for video stories. This creates a really professional product. Here is a short extract of a prisoner's finished audio story.
Hello Finley, this is Daddy. I'm going to read you a story this morning, The Very Hungry Caterpillar. In the light of the moon, a little egg lay on a leaf. One Sunday morning, the warm sun came up and pop! Out of an egg came a tiny and very hungry caterpillar. He started to look for some food. On Monday, he ate through one apple, but he was still hungry. On Tuesday, he ate through 2 pears, but he was still hungry. On Wednesday, he ate through 3 plums.
More often than not, prisoners come back to record another story because they realise the impact it has had on their family and on themselves. They can't do much for their children from behind bars, but they can do this. As you can imagine, the kids are so happy to get the stories. We get feedback saying that they play them all the time and that children that had been crying themselves to sleep are comforted because they could hear their parents' voice whenever they needed to. Although the charity is called Storybook Dads, we also work in women's prisons under the name of Storybook Mums. And we also allow step-parents, uncles, aunties, siblings and grandparents to take part. Anyone who has a child who is missing them, really. The charity began in 2002 in Dartmoor Prison in Devon, where we were given an empty cell to work from. Since those humble beginnings, the project now runs in 103 prisons, including women's prisons, YOIs and secure mental health units. In 70% of our member prisons, Storybook Dads or Storybook Mums is run from the library. We have trained prisoners to be audio and video editors. The process is both technical and creative, and they get to experience what it's like to work in a dynamic environment doing a really meaningful job. For those that work exceptionally well, there's the chance of part-time paid work when they are released from prison. They help us to edit stories sent from all our other member prisons. This can be done alongside other work or training opportunities, which helps with the successful rehabilitation. One of them is Neil. Neil was given a 4-year sentence and served 18 months. At home, he had 2 sons aged 5 and 1 and accessed our service within 3 weeks of arriving in prison. Neil told us that he was desperate to do something nice for his kids after letting them down so badly. His boys loved the first story and his eldest asked for them regularly, even making specific book requests. His enthusiasm for the project made him a perfect candidate to train as a Storybook Dad's editor. Here are some words from Neil. Being separated from my kids was the hardest thing I have experienced in my life. Before coming to prison, I would read to my boys at bedtime most days, so being able to send my kids stories regularly helped me to feel like I was still being a good dad. Being a Storybook Dad's editor was very rewarding, as I knew that I was making a difference to the lives of other prisoners and their kids. Neil's story demonstrates that providing opportunities for prisoners to be involved in their children's lives can motivate prisoners to adopt more positive behaviours, both while in prison and after their release. Due to building work, we have had to temporarily move to an office in the community, where our staff, including Neil, now do the editing. But we hope to move back to the prison as soon as we can, so we can train more prisoners to learn audio and video editing. You've heard some of an audio story, so here is an extract of a video story. As you can see, the pages of the book are added to enhance the final story.
Good morning, Finley. It's Daddy. I'm going to read you a book today. We love dinosaurs. We love ones that are really tall. We love ones that are only small. We love ones that can gallop past, and plodding ones that don't go fast.
Finley watched it 3 times in a row. It's the first time his mum had seen him really laugh in a long time. They could see Dad is okay. They know that he loves them. Our work fosters an interest in books and reading for both parent and child. Prisoners with poor reading skills often feel so encouraged that they've been able to do something positive for their child that they aspired to go on to improve their reading or embark on other learning opportunities within prison. We gather lots of feedback from our participants and their families, and this consistently shows us that the projects make a huge difference to prisoners and their children, as you can see from these stats. 98% of families say our project helped to improve the relationship between the child and their absent parent. 92% of families say that our project increased their child's interest in books and improved their well-being. 96% of prisoners say our project encouraged them to read to their child more in the future. 85% of prisoners think that taking part in the project will reduce their likelihood of reoffending. Nurturing connections between prisoners and their kids while they are separated helps with reintegration back into the family unit upon release. Our work includes promoting family stability, reducing recidivism, and encouraging societal and policy shifts that recognise the importance of family relationships in rehabilitation. We've come a long way from an empty prison cell in Dartmoor Prison as an office. As well as the 100 or so UK prisons, we've helped other countries copy our model, including Denmark, Poland, Hungary, Japan and Australia. In the past 22 years, we've produced over 85,000 stories and many hundreds of other personalised gifts. We feel lucky to work in a field that brings comfort to so many children. For thousands of families like this, Storybook Dads has been a lifeline. Finally, here is a short film made in Dartmoor Prison that demonstrates the power of what we do.
I love you most, I love you best, much, much more than all the rest. I love you tall, I love you high, way up in the sunny sky. I love you far, I love you wide, from over here to the other side. I love you big, I love you tough, when the path is smooth and when it's rough. I love you soft, I love you still, and you know I always will. I love you close, I love you tight, when you're wrong and when you're right. I love you night, I love you day, in every moment, come what may. Because I love you with my whole heart, from where you end to where you start.
Storybook Dads is a way for parents to engage in the meaningful activity of reading to their children. Prisoners read a bedtime story for their child. And then the child can listen whenever they're missing their parent and whenever they're feeling lonely, which will help to sustain them through the period that they're apart.
Nothing ever prepares you for prison. I suppose you watch TV programmes, you get this perception of what prison's going to be like. It's not been what I expected. The realisation that you're not going to see your family and your kids. It's hard for them, especially my youngest. We can go weeks without talking because I don't want to talk to Dad. I want to see him. Not being the dad that I want to be is hard. My youngest hates talking on the phone, so we don't get to talk a great deal. But he loves the Storybook Dads, even though I'm not there physically. Like, he can see me, so we get that interaction without me being present.
There's such a need for it, really, for the families and for the prisoners. If you can keep prisoners happy, they're happier within themselves. The families benefit so much, and it makes the prisoners feel they can do something valuable for their children from behind bars. If somebody in prison keeps their links with their family, it's something for them to go out to and a reason to stay out of trouble.
To me, family is everything. That's my world, it's my family. And knowing what I've got out there waiting for me, it's the only thing that keeps you going. Yeah. It's not forever. Hi kids, it's Dad. Just going to read you a little book called I Love You Night and Day, and I hope you enjoy it. I miss you lots and love you loads.
I'll start by saying I didn't bring tissue this morning, and you all just start bawling. So
I was watching you. Yeah, it's quite powerful film, isn't it? Anyway, I hope everybody liked it. That kind of explains our work in a nutshell, really better than we could sit here and talk about it, I felt. So
Super. Thank you so much for that fantastic intervention, Sharon and Kizzy. Really comprehensive, really useful. I think it really underscored the importance of also looking at these issues, these themes from a child's perspective, as it did at the start of the video. And thank you also so much for sharing the audio, the video stories with us. I think they were really, really powerful. It's also interesting to hear a bit about the Storybook Mums program and how you're also engaging with other family members. And it's very inspiring to see as a broader lesson how really you can start quite small with these kinds of efforts, initiatives, and really expand them and grow them to have a very wide reach and impact in the end. So that's really fantastic to see. And I think in terms of both interventions today that we heard, it's been really inspiring to see how effectively participants of these programs can go on to become instructors, trainers, editors. That's really powerful, particularly given that these individuals like yourself, Jay, have really lived through these programs and are very, very familiar with them. So that's really fantastic to see. And also I would note the focus that both interventions had when it comes to data collection and evidence. I think that's also very, very important to consider when really understanding the impact of this great work that you're all doing. So thank you very much once again. I would have I would really invite anybody, if you have any questions, to please go ahead and share them in the Q&A box. I believe Lisa also would have a question. I would also have one myself. Perhaps we could do a quick round. I'll be happy to share the question I have, and then Lisa, hand the floor to you as well. I'm just wondering, in both cases, whether through your work on these initiatives, whether you've observed any kind of gender aspects, any differences perhaps when it comes to engaging with women, with female participants in your programs, whether you've noticed any kind of differences or specific gender related obstacles, and kind of how you may have addressed these. Perhaps if I could hand over to you first, Sharon and Kizzy, in relation to Storybook Mums, and then to yourselves, Danny and Jay, to share your thoughts on that. Thank you.
I think, sometimes we notice a difference because often mum has been the primary carer, and may have read stories before to their child. I'm not saying that all dads haven't, but as I said, sometimes they haven't. So for lots of dads, it can be quite a new experience, can't it? Also, I think dads can sometimes become more disconnected from their families. Mum, while she's in prison, she may still be, having lots of interaction with whoever the caregiver is. But sometimes for dads, they have to be tougher or appear tougher. So sometimes it can be more difficult for us to get them to engage when they first come. They're quite nervous. They're shy. I mean, reading aloud can be quite difficult. Being recorded reading aloud, especially if your literacy isn't great, is just terrifying sometimes for them, and sometimes they can, once they do let the guard down, they do get quite emotional. You can see the biggest, most tattooed guy come in, and then he starts to read Goldilocks and then he's crying, you know what I mean? So I think it can be more difficult for men to let their guard down, I think. And sometimes they're just embarrassed. We walk around the wing sometimes to try and promote our project. And they're just, oh, I can't do that, miss. They just feel a bit embarrassed about it. But once they've come to record and they've done it, and they tell their friends, they usually come back for more. I mean, there are only 12 women's prisons in the UK, so the number is, substantially smaller than the men. I think we've got a population of about 85,000 prisoners, and about 5,000 of them are women. So we do work predominantly with men, but that's not to say, I mean, it's when we work with the women, it can be really wonderful because they feel like they're being a mummy again, and it's been really difficult for them to be separated. So there are differences, but the end result really is still the same, and the impact is still the same.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to echo what Sharon said on that, we certainly see those divides as well. A little bit on kind of the stigma against sharing. There's usually a good amount of bravado in a men's class, and so there's kind of the first step is a lot kind of knocking down some of the false ideas we have about ourselves and kind of taking accountability a little bit stronger. And in a women's prison, where we started in women's prisons, our model was focused entirely on women when we started working in the justice space, because they often are the largest indicators of success rate for their families. Just like Sharon said, they tend to keep kind of a closer community net there. But on the other side, we have a struggle with our female populations on making sure they're giving themselves grace. There's a lot of kind of self-hate and blame, particularly if you come from a domestic abuse background. And so that tends to be the big obstacle that we overcome in a women's prison. But that's to say, humans are humans. There's kind of a mix of all of them all over the place. I find a much bigger change instead of the gender difference between working in justice impacted youth and working in justice impacted adults. That for us tends to be like, oh, wow, the curriculum really needs to be rethought and we kind of need to engage in a different level. But yeah, all the work is great and really just kind of informs each other.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your responses there. Really, really interesting to learn that from you. Just to note as well, we've had a very nice comment come in the Q&A, which says it's incredible. This initiative helps shorten the distance between children and parents. It would be very interesting to replicate this program in countries like Mexico. I think this was in relation to Storybook Dads, but also I remember the very positive comment that came in relation to your work as well, Danny and Jay, earlier. So it's really great to see this interest coming in from the audience today. There's one final question. I'm very aware that we're much running out of time now, but from Frederick Armstrong, he says some people may think that reading the book over the phone or through a video call might be good. Is there an appetite for that within the program, and are there things that wouldn't be obvious that make recordings beneficial, perhaps more than a phone call or video call? I don't know, Sharon, whether you will be able to respond to that in just less than a minute or so then we can come to a close during the session. I would hand back over to Lisa then. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think with phone calls or video calls, sometimes the families can't always get to each other at the same time, the right time. Also, I don't know where it's like anywhere else, but in video calls in the UK, they're monitored. They have to be monitored by officers. You know what I mean? So it doesn't feel so intimate. Somebody's watching you have your video call with your family. Similarly, phone calls can be listened into. That doesn't happen with our program. It's private. The story gets sent to the family, and also the child can listen to it whenever they need to. If they're feeling lonely one night or upset, it's there all the time. So it doesn't, I'm not saying there's no appetite for the other way, but I think this is different because it's more intimate and it's long lasting.
Super. Thank you so much for your response to that, Sharon. I would say that that's all we unfortunately have time for in terms of questions today. I do see that more are coming in, but would really warmly encourage you to connect with each other and exchange in relation to these questions, and also very much hoping we have further opportunities to continue these exchanges on these really valuable points with you all. So thank you again to our speakers for their time and excellent interventions today, to you all for your active participation, and to Lisa for this valuable opportunity to collaborate. Also, many thanks again to everybody who contributed to the online collection. Other initiatives from around the world have been explored during other webinars of this series, including from Asia and Latin America. So really warmly invite you to take a look at those recordings via our website. With that, I would like to hand back the floor to Lisa to close. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Katie. So on the topic of connecting with each other, I also via LinkedIn received a similar question. First of all, asking where do you have where do you learn about this project? So we do desk research, we travel, go to conferences, meet people, but it's also occasions like this. So when I said at the beginning, please reach out if you know of similar programs, anything doing about education in prison, please reach out to us, as we really see our role in documenting these and sharing these. And the concrete question that I received was about contact information. So please, in our case studies, we always have at the end contact information. So if you missed now to write down the email, go to our collection and you find the cases and the contact information, because that's the idea, to connect you. It was actually, it came by UNODC. They would like to connect with some of you. I was also very happy. Frederick, who just posed the question, is our UNESCO chair on applied research on education in prison in Canada. So connecting all of us, this is one of our main goals. Your stories were extremely, I mean, everybody will agree, inspiring, but also you really try to show the impact. This is what I appreciate. You try to get into data, because this is what we need. It's one of the issues we also think about. How can we help you to show this impact better? Because I can see it from different programs. So maybe it's not a question now, something you can think about, write to us. How can we help you? Will it be another publication, a conference, getting impact together? I would be most happy to assist all of you to further share your experiences and your good practices. So I'm closing now by saying thank you for your interest, for your participation. A special thanks goes, of course, to our presenters, Sharon Barry with Kizzy Rath and Dani Handlund with Jaren J. Cook. Of course, our French and Spanish translators, and my dear co-moderator, Katie. So please feel free to contact us at any time with any further question. If you're interested in staying in touch with the prison, specifically the library community, but even education community, there's a global email listserv that I'm coordinating. So you will find the link in the comment. You're also welcome to join this, so you learn about all kinds of initiatives going on. So with these words, I wish you a wonderful day, wonderful evening, and I hope to see you all very soon. Bye-bye from our side. Bye. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.